Hey guys, this will be a continuation of the personal pictures. I have more than a few, so I'm not like totally scraping the barrel here trying to find something to keep the channel alive with, but I am doing exactly that. So nobody makes pictures anymore, so every now and then I go look at them every few years, and so they seem so current at the time, but now they're decades ago, and it is kind of neat to look back at what was cutting edge then, or what worked then, or so. I always liked my logging. So. And here's an example. So I even that's 1993. That was 1994. So I loved it so much, I even wanted to keep the envelopes that the paycheck came in. So, it's the old link belt 2800C. Well before it burned, running a nice set of 36-inch tongs on there. I think they're Opsol tongs. I've still got them. They're in tough shape now. They've been beat on. But so some of these I'm pre-sorting through. They got names and numbers and names on the doors and towns and my face in them, and which, I mean, we all have a face, but I just lay a little bit low. Even though I don't have a record. I had a speeding ticket in 1991. That's the last time I was ever recognized for doing anything wrong. So here's some Alaskan milling. Like I said, I was right into the milling, just massively intrigued with it. Adding value, you know, taking a log like that might have been worth 20-30 bucks as just chip weight, or maybe 55-60 a meter back in the day, third of a meter. Yeah, still $20-30 log, and turning two boards into $30. So that was our entrance or foray into it. Tried doing a bit of chainsawing. Didn't sell them, just getting used to it, getting hooked on it. There was our skidder in the shop, not our shop, getting the engine pulled out. And those old logging songs I talk about, it's a race to see if my equipment or me will be the first to completely break down. No truer words were ever set to a poem. This was up in Squamish, BC. Just a drive-by at a Logger Sports one day, going around the town looking for pictures. Burritt, it was Bruce Burritt and Sons. They had a big fleet. And that was only in the early 90s. It was 1993-ish, 4. Still running 5 axles. You'd never see that today. It was myself. Took down a big old one. We didn't do too many big ones, but of course every now and then you'd get one. That was my office for quite a few years, that one. Must have put 5,000-6,000 hours on that one. I built all the guarding myself for it. It's all homemade. And the heel and grapple, put that together. I was actually right across the street from where I grew up. Once we got into the logging a bit more, everybody was a victim. So go knocking on doors, asking for timber and trade for land clearing, or go on a percentage. This was a big site, 10-12 acres. Actually, the guy that owned it was a BC ferry captain. He's probably long retired now, but hey, let us have the run of the place. So it was a nice little filler job. Lots of loads out of there. Just some random example of a Humboldt undercut, pulling the waste out of the stump instead out of the log. Still 066. There's my dad, and that was a guy I worked with, or he worked with us for quite a few years. We went to kindergarten through high school together. So that's a load of alder, red alder. That was stuff we'd take to our mill, or that stuff's looking a little gnarly there. That was probably going to the chip facility, get ground up. Yeah, there must have been something about it. I mean, who takes a camera to work every day if they do electrical or drywall or crunching numbers? So stuff gets in your blood. And I can assure you, at the ripe old age of 48 now, it doesn't get out of your blood ever, too. Yeah, we were so haywire starting out. Well, we were haywire finishing up years later, too. But heel and grapple, and with a set of tongs, using the bucket as the heel and the hydraulic thumb to keep it from collapsing the cylinder from going against the relief. Homemade bunks on a low bed, but it worked. We're fully independent. Could go buy a load of go buy a stand of wood, do it all in house. I mean, it was a few hundred, $300-400 to have a load of logs hauled even back then, self-loader, and we had our own truck, so we might as well use it. Another nice red cedar. So not too hard to find them that big here, even on residential land. 4 or 5 footers, they're still around. And that was the first excavator I ever ran. That was here. I mean, it was old then, but this was in '94. Doing a big acreage. Had to build a road up to the top of the little mountain. Logged it all off. That was a Link Belt 2650A, and that had the big 2-foot high levers, linkage controlled. We built our own guarding for that one too. Stiff thumb. So. Wasn't a joy to run, but with those long levers you could sure get particular with it and scratch the fleas off a dog's back, because if you moved your hand 6 inches, the bucket would only move about the same. The big levers. Their little backyard land clearing job. $4,000 or $5,000 worth of wood, and get some money to boot for clearing it and burning it. But of course, you can't burn anymore. So. That was my truck I started with when I got out of high school. That was my work truck. Had the tidy tank, the beacon light on it. It was an ex-Canfor truck. It came from the Sunshine Coast. It was a 1-ton with a 4-speed. Oh, this one day I'll let you guys in I'll show you my little museum. These are just pictures of pictures. These are just skill saw blades that I took them all because I gave some away. The John Deere one to an old friend. But I painted those with acrylic paints. I could have been an artist if I'd stuck with it. But I think we did that one the other day. That's a repeat. Loading chipwood. It was up in the hills. Hoe chucking, we call it here. Yeah, that grappling heel made our life a lot easier. We were able to start working in tight landings and tight spots like that. Didn't have to load over the side. Didn't need as much room. And the grapple is your best friend. It makes your chainsaws last longer because you can slam that grapple up and down the log, slide it, give the log a roll, slide it again. You've basically created a poor man's delimber. Our limbing and chainsaw guys would just love that. You'd take a big cedar down, take a minute and a half, just drag that grapple up and down it. Thing would come out clean as a pole. Get them to nip the end and cut it at a 15-inch inside a bark diameter to create a standard and better H&I grade saw log. So they got to basically sit and watch logging all day. There was a 10-acre block we did. We did that with a cat. I think the deal was on that one. That was 1997. We didn't want to get into the expense of burning and wanted the land opened up quick. So we just bulldozed it with the cat with the D7F with the brush rake and slammed it against the property lines as a berm. They got some quick land opened up. Another job. We did lots of, hundreds and hundreds of, just non-stop for years and years. And I did like to push the bigger stuff over if we were cleaning up after, just to help leverage the stump instead of beating on them. Start pulling on 3, 4, 5 foot stumps there. It's a lot of wasted time. But when you push it, you get the log down, you get the felling, you get the stump out, sort of a 3-for-1. There's a big fir. 4 or 5 feet across, 4 foot across up there, 15, 20 feet in the air. Same job. It's the back end of my dad. Of course, when you do the big trees, the camera comes out a lot more that day. It's all about the photo shoots. Taping off the first log. I don't remember what we did it as. If they were multiples of 9s for peeler grades, like a 27 or a 36. Maybe just 41s. Can't recall. That was a nice stand. That was me. Well, it still is me. There, this is at my own personal property when I first moved in here in 1994. So I had to go into the back acreage there. I didn't want to cut any of my trees down, but I found, they're called buckskins. So when the pioneers went through 80 years before, they'd creamed it. They'd take the butt log and just take the good stuff, cut the best and leave the rest. So I went and scrounged up some pieces and cut them back till they got solid. And there was my, I think that was my first little personal load I ever did. Got paid for, paid my property taxes that year. I remember one of these chunks I got like 800 bucks for. So I was pretty happy about that. Got money, cleaned up some waste, put something into the market, created a product, paid my taxes, got a picture. Oh, this was back at the shop where he worked on the skidder. This was a John Deere wrecker, famous guy. He was a real cool guy. He bought this sawmill to tear it apart because it had a John Deere 4-cylinder diesel up top. And I couldn't believe somebody would cut up a sawmill when I didn't have one. So we begged him to, not begged him, we asked him if we could come down and try it out before he tore it apart. It was all made out of wood, so it was real flimsy. But it did work. We fired it up and cut some logs with it. It was a ball. Learned all about using the manual, what do they call the toe boards, or no, head blocks, and dinky little carriage. Glad I took pictures of this stuff because that was archaic even then, 20 years ago. You had everybody out there watching and helping, so wondered what these logger kids were gonna do. Well, I'm gonna end up with my face in here if I don't watch it. So that's not me, that was our helper. A homemade mill. That's the mighty Fraser Valley. That's looking from on Vetter Mountain, on the Vetter Mountain Forest Service Road, looking back towards north. That was in the early 90s. That was just visiting, driving around, looking at stuff. This was top of Mount Woodside. That was a timber sale. Nothing to do with me. Yeah, you know, it's a sickness when you go log all week and cut wood all week, and then as soon as you're done on your own time, you're right back at it, going seeing what everybody else is doing, taking pictures, and meeting the night watchman, the weekend watchman, sharing tales, hearing stories. So I still miss it. Anyways, I'll cut this and I'll start the next one.